Hello and welcome to Season 2 of On the Road With. My name's Gareth and I'll be your host. For those of you that are joining me for the first time today, this show is all about talking to touring professionals in the performing arts and entertainment industries about the realities of life on the road, what it's meant for their mental health, the people they've worked with and how they got started. I'd like to thank you all sincerely for your support for the show so far. If you haven't already, you can like my page on Facebook or follow me on Instagram or Twitter. It's Gareth John Music on those platforms, and I'll be posting updates about the show on those platforms. You can also like, follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcast fix. Now, I'm delighted today to be speaking to a multi-skilled performer, primarily a burlesque dancer, and she's built up a great reputation in her field and has worked all over the world. I wanted to speak to different types of performers, not just musicians, particularly those who use circus skills in their performances, because that sort of area has always fascinated me. So this was a real pleasure, so I'd like to sit back and enjoy my conversation with Miss Talulah Blue. Talulah, thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to speak to you again.
Yeah, it's been a little while, hasn't it?
Yeah, too long.
Basically the sort of purpose of today really is just to find out. I mean, we're talking the day after we've had an extension of the lockdown in Leicester.
Yeah.
So this will go out a bit later than that, but we'll still be in that lockdown. Does that include you in terms of where you live and stuff?
I'm just sort of on the border of it. Yeah.
So pretty depressing news really, especially for us in the arts, and with that kind of announcement of 1.5 billion going out to the arts. I know on one of the sort of group chats I'm on with a few other musicians, there's a few people saying, well, where is it? Is it going to trickle down to where it needs to, or?
Yeah. I don't know how they would divide that up, or whether it just goes to bigger bands and theatres. I don't know about us little freelancers. We're way down the chain, aren't we?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's. I think unfortunately we've been down the chain right from the start, really, and I can't see that changing. I guess the advantage for you is that one thing that's intrigued me looking at on your social media and stuff is that you've got your shop as well, which seems like its own sort of entity. So has that kept you busy during lockdown?
Yeah, luckily I had the foresight as a performer starting out. Like, I started in costumes anyway, but we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah.
But to have a double-pronged business, because performing alone is such a risky business. One month you're booming and the next you're not making anything. So
yeah, there's a real boom and bust sort of element about it, isn't there?
Yeah.
And well, me personally, I quite like that kind of on the edge excitement, but it can wear a bit thin once you've been doing it a few years, and then you have a dead month. You know, your Januaries are usually quite sort of dry, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the holiday month. That's the one where I take 3 weeks and go somewhere exotic if I can.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I know a couple of musicians, for example, who do actually have tours in January, February, and stuff, which is good on the one hand. But then I look at the rest of the year and think, well, you don't really get a break. So I think it's important to have that clear time off where you just you're not working. So I think people assume that because we enjoy our job, we want to do it all the time.
Yeah, it takes its toll though, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Yeah, all the traveling and all the and all the kind of chasing money as well. I guess we've both been in a situation where we've had to do a lot of chasing with no reward. So without going into too much detail, and I'm sure that's not the first one of those situations you've been in either.
That's the second time I've had that happen. I've been lucky in my career that in 10 years it's only happened twice. I can imagine some people would get incredibly disheartened because you put your everything into a show. Yeah, so you want to get paid at the end of it.
Yeah, and also, I think we've both moved into sort of management side of it now as well, because you've got sort of various other performers that work under you, that you hire, and I'm the same with band members and musicians, and you feel terrible, don't you? You feel a real sense of responsibility when there's other people reliant on you for their living as well.
I know that I push people quite hard if I can as well, because I want the audience to have a thoroughly good time. So, once we've all been working our asses off on stage, yeah.
Yeah, tricky one. So just talk to us then. Let's get positive rather than just dwelling on that particular situation, because we usually do that when we speak. So. So just talk us through your kind of structure then in terms of, because I know I've seen you work with a lot of different burlesque dancers, for example, and
Yeah.
fire performers and stuff. So
Yeah.
how did that all come to being with the whole setup you've got now? Not just the skills you do. We'll come on to that later, but the kind
Yeah.
of setup.
I think so. My very first show that I put together, a venue called The Musician in Leicester, I was friendly with his partner, and she put me in touch with the musician, and we started running a little burlesque show. And I had limited, well, no knowledge in the industry, but a decent head on my shoulders. So I just structured a little show that was a band for intro, 3 dancers, a band, 3 dancers, and then the band at the end. So it was a band, that's a lot. You're like, oh God, no, I wouldn't do that again at all.
Is that's still going, isn't it, at the Musician? I've seen posters for that.
I've tried to pass it on to somebody now because I wasn't putting my everything into it anymore. But we did 10 years, and yeah, that was the beginning of everything. And I learned a lot, and just worked with lots of really great people. And it was just trying to bring a nice underground scene of burlesque to Leicester, which, you know, isn't like a major city. We don't have the biggest budget here, but to bring some quality cabaret. So we had or have a good audience that return to shows. So yeah, that was the beginning, was just that little structure. But I did that from day dot and it worked. So I've just kept reworking that and adding performers in here and there, and then, you know, a bit of choreography, and then you get better lighting tech at different venues. So I've just expanded from that format.
Just grow from there, yeah. I mean, we always in King Bastards, we've done since we've worked with you, we've obviously done lots of different shows with different burlesque performers, and you're kind of known as the original in the camp. Like, oh yeah, Talulah, she's old school. She's the the founder. Do you know what I mean? Because like you've been doing it that bit longer than all the others, who are all great, by the way. All the others that we've worked with,
Yeah.
You know, so. I mean, you know, it's about building up that kind of reputation, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, if you can hold it out as a freelancer for that amount of time, you'd be an old oracle of burlesque. But like prior to me, I think the scene had been picking up in London for maybe 5 or 10 years. There was a revival happening, and prior to that it was the 70s, and then prior to that it was the Playboy 1950s thing that those strip clubs basically stole all of the all of the custom away from burlesque because they were a lot more extreme. But then burlesque has had, every 20 or 30 years it seems to have a revival again, because it's just such a beautiful art form.
I mean, it's a similar thing kind of happens with jazz and swing. Really, it kind of gets reinvented in some form or other. Whether that's the postmodern jukebox thing, for example. That's kind of given it a bit of a revival. Before that, you had your kind of, if I'm talking male singers, you kind of had your Harry Connick Juniors and your Michael Bublé's, giving it that big band revival. Jamie Cullum's done that in a very British way. It kind of, I think cycles always kind of come round. I mean, even if you look musically, like Amy Winehouse, for example, kind of brought that Motown sound back to, even though she didn't cover any Motown songs, you know, on her albums, it was all her own stuff, but the feel and the vibe of that music through the Daptone label in the States kind of came back around.
Honed her style for a while, didn't she? I heard early recordings of her, and she didn't sound anything like that.
Oh, no,
really
she was a proper jazz.
The feel.
Yeah, she was a proper jazz singer to start with. Yeah. So I think these things kind of come in cycles, and it's just if you can kind of, like you say, last out the cycle, especially as a freelancer. You know, I think that's you can have some kind of longevity in it, really. And I think a lot of people go into it. It's a bit like podcasting. I was reading the other day. You know, there's so many at the moment starting up, But there was an article, it was saying 80% of those, if you check in 3 months, they won't have done any more, they would have stopped doing episodes and they would have got kind of disheartened with it. And you've got to kind of take a very long game approach, haven't you, in the arts?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, they say when I did my graphics degree, so I did a degree in graphic design, they said something like 80% of you won't work in graphics. But I did manage to get a job as a graphic designer. So while I was honing the burlesque thing for a few years, I worked a full-time job at the same time, and then came home and did work on top of the work. So
what was that with the costume side as well?
Yeah, making costumes and just sort of getting to grips with just studying vintage style a lot, like obsessing over it the way that you would obsess over music. I would just watch people move over and over again and then try and emulate it.
I tell you, I'm terrible for it. I mean, I'm in terms of watching shows, I'm always, it's like Tony Bennett, who's one of my big kind of heroes singer wise. He said to Bublé, who's another hero singer wise, he said to him, if you what was the phrase? He said, Michael, you steal from everybody. He said, if you steal from one, you're a thief. If you steal from everybody, it's research. Yeah. And I thought that's a great quote, because I'm always looking at everybody's shows and vocal styles as well in terms of the singers. And I just think, well, if I take a tiny little bit from everybody, I'll have my own thing. And like I went to see Jamie Cullum last year at Symphony Hall in Birmingham, and I was watching the show thinking, oh yeah, that's good. I went from that to that, and even tiny things like, and it gave me a little bit of hope actually, because like me, he's no dancer, and he was kind of moving with the two backing singers. And I said to my wife, I said, "Oh yeah, see, he's dancing. He's moving a bit now, and he's doing all right." She said, "Yeah, but if you watch carefully, they're counting him in at every step, like that." And you could see them going, "Yeah, that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4." Like you could see it if you look closely. So, but I think you just kind of, I'm sure you've got your kind of inspirations and influences that you just take a little bit from here, a bit there, and then just make it your own.
Yeah, I mean, as long as, if you add your own talent into the mix, you're going to have your own style at the end of it anyway.
Yeah, by
default. You've been performing for so long, you fall into your style. So, multiple influences, and it doesn't just have to be your genre, does it? So if you're taking from everything that inspires you and creating a whole new monster, then you've got another beast.
Whole new beast, that's it. And one thing that I've been quite impressed with is your kind of network of performers, and that it's kind of global now, isn't it? Because you've got I can't remember her name, the Russian dancer who comes
Agneta,
and she's definitely got her kind of own way of performing, and her own kind of demeanor. She's one of those people who dominates a room.
Totally.
And you seem to have struck up a really good working relationship with her.
Yeah, I mean, it is such an international industry, and the internet makes that possible. And if you have enough contacts and build them up over the years, then you can go to another country and do a show, and then to make it worth your while, you might be able to get a couple more shows around that country as well. So so sometimes you work and you do it purely for the travel if it's a country that you want to go to. But sometimes if you get a good tour, then you're laughing, you'll get a nice paycheck at the end of it.
Well, because you were in Germany for a while, weren't you? I remember speaking to you, and you were in Cologne, was it?
Dusseldorf. Yeah, so that was a good one. That was 7 shows a week with 2 days off. So you do 2 shows on a Saturday and a Sunday. But it was a part of a circus show, and I always imagined circus to just be the circus tents that I saw in my local park. This was like so. This was so upscale, and like they just most of the acrobats and aerial and pole dancers were your Eastern European, highly trained, absolutely amazing performers, and so that was a nice paying one in a theatre. And if they're bringing in 200 to 300 people every show, you start getting some real turnaround. So I love doing theatres, whether they're big or small. That was a really, really good one.
Theatres are the one, aren't they? that
They're
kind
set
of
up for it. It's just
perfect.
everything is set up for you to perform. It's just
It is, and also you can. What I like with the theatre is you can get in there early. You can have a, especially singing wise, you can have a proper sound check. You've got that kind of. It's slightly awkward when you. I don't know about for you, but when we go out as a band in a theatre, that first moment when you kind of walk out and everyone's not quite warmed up, it does take a little bit longer for them to get going because they're not just knocking back drink like they would be at a club night type of thing.
yeah,
But
they're sat waiting.
yeah, that's it. And it's always that quite early in the evening as well. You're like starting at 7:30, 8:00, whereas you do a club night,
Yeah.
like what the ones that we've done, I mean, the band haven't gone on till 10:30, 11 on some of those. So it's a different kind of beast, but yeah, theatres are fantastic. It's definitely where I want to kind of head. If I'm honest, until you just said it, I didn't know that these days burlesque was, it was burlesque you were doing in Germany, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I just wonder as well if your listeners actually fully understand what burlesque is as we sort of rabbit on about it.
Maybe not.
And
Maybe not.
what
Actually.
my
Yeah.
description would even be, because there's so many forms of it, and I feel like it's merging with drag acts at the moment, with TV and with the scene. Everything is kind of merging together a little bit, because there's so much exposure. But burlesque for me personally is vintage striptease, which is very deliberate and precise, and it's about the beats of the music. It's about making the audience wait for each reveal, and you could spend a long time just on a glove, for example. But then you've got neo-burlesque and all different kinds of things where you can make a political statement, which goes back to old theatre and cabaret and acting. So it all crosses over. But
a bit like music, I guess. There is that fusion of styles every now and then.
Yeah, definitely. But burlesque will have some form of striptease in it, but it's not about just purely. Well, some of it is a bit grindy, that kind of naughty stuff. But it can be whatever the performer wants to do with it. They don't even have to take much off if they don't want to.
Yeah, and that's quite sort of accepted as well. And I quite like that it's not a kind of. Although I have seen it go that way a couple of times, it's not a lechy kind of thing, if you know what I mean, for want of a better expression.
I like a really good mixture on a lineup. Like I love a lewd performer that's going to be a little bit crass and shock the audience, and then I like someone who's got a statement to say, and then I enjoy someone just doing a beautiful dance routine as well. So I just you want to take the audience through a range of emotions while they're watching a show.
Yeah, that's it. It is a show, and it's I guess the challenge is sometimes when burlesque is part of another night where there's a lot else going on, is to try and get that range of emotions and that range of performance. If you've got 2 or 3 dancers, when they're literally only doing a song each, you're not there for an evening in a theatre. It's that kind of I guess that's quite a challenge to get all those to kind of program it right, so that's quite a quick sort of turnaround. And
I think maybe you think that because you guys, like, bands will do a half an hour or a 45-minute set, and I don't even know how bands have the stamina to do what they do, because we get between 4 to 5 minutes, but you can take people all over the place in 4 to 5 minutes. You can have them laughing and crying and with goose pimples. Like in 4 minutes, you can create a lot of emotions through one performance. So
yeah, and also what I've seen from you guys, I remember. So the last time I worked with you and Agneta was at the pumping station, wasn't it? And and that was very much you guys were very much involved in the as kind of roaming performers throughout the night as well. It wasn't just the performance itself. I saw you about sort of talking with punters. And sort of being part of the general vibe as well. So I guess that's part of your job if the night requires it.
I didn't used to be comfortable with that kind of thing because I'm super introvert. So talking to people is terrifying. But
it was more Agneta on that night actually. I remember. Yeah.
I make sure I take an extrovert with me so that
balance it out.
Performance has sort of taken that route a little bit where Yeah, I mean, you do need to create a vibe. The audience have bought their ticket and they've turned up and they've got dressed up, but there has to be an atmosphere for them to relax and get involved.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky balance. I mean, we get so many inquiries with the Bastards for roaming performances because of what we are. It's a brass band, and it's a
Yeah,
massive selling point of the band. And in a different way, I really enjoy the roaming side. But I also I'm quite old school, and I guess I get my fix of this as a solo artist with a big band, where
yeah,
you walk into the theatre, you have a seat, and there's the anticipation and the atmosphere. All right, whoever I'm
yeah,
coming to see is coming on now. You wouldn't go and see Jamie Cullum or whoever, and then you bump into him in the foyer, and he's singing you a song in the foyer. The whole thing is the show. The curtains go back, and there's a production, and the band walk on and they get an applause. Then the singer walks on separately and they get an applause. Or they walk on as they're starting the first tune. All those little
yeah.
things. That's where the real buzz is for me with performing.
Yeah, that's the perfectionism in the artist, isn't it? Because I
Yeah,
love a good show where I can see the audience close enough, and the production is all beautiful. And a lot of the time, people do just want me to wing it and kind of work in whatever space and perform almost ad hoc kind of crazy situation, which I can do, but I don't get the same buzz
I
out of
don't.
having it.
No.
I want the perfect setup. I want.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with me as well. And I don't know about you, but I'll spend hours and hours thinking that through. We've got a show coming up. I'll be, like I've said earlier, I'll be sort of taking bits from other shows I've seen, and then I mean in my notepad I can see it now on the table. There's about 4 pages dedicated to my album launch for the next album. What song's going to go where? Whether I'm going to talk in between them. I'll change
Yeah.
suit at half time. The lads will change it into all black for the second half. Even down to how it looks as well. And you don't get that if you're employed to come in and do somebody else's night necessarily. You don't get that kind of level of say really.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're lucky. We're both the boss, aren't we? So I just stick
Yeah,
my oar in generally and ask for things. But
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah. You
But
don't always get ideal conditions.
but one thing I've noticed about your generally about people in the burlesque world. So you've got like Laura, is it the red haired girl?
Yeah, yeah, Laura. Yeah,
Yeah. So we've done a couple of gigs with her. There's also Lucy Littlemore as well from Darling
yeah,
Creatures or Vixen Trio. I've worked with both of them. Lucy more as a
yeah.
singer actually in the studio and stuff like that. But one thing I've noticed about you all is that you are really all about detail and you're perfectionists and you're all really passionate
Yeah,
about it. So
yeah.
I think that bodes well. Everybody I've met in the burlesque world is super passionate about it and wants it to be right and is not a blagger or anything. They can adapt and stuff like
Yes.
that, but that's not really naturally them. They prefer to whenever I book Lucy for anything, she'll have a million questions like that, and at the start I'm
Yeah.
thinking, oh man, but actually the end result. I remember after the album launch thinking, I'm so glad that you really drilled into the detail with me, and because the end result was just stunning. It was great.
Yeah, I do. I think of the people that I know working in clothing and performing, and I'm like, God, I really know some kick-ass women. Like, they really know their stuff. They get on with it. They're not intimidated by any situation. They make it work, and they put on an amazing show no matter what. So, yeah, it's a great industry.
Yeah, well, I think if you've got good people, then the rest will
Mm,
kind of follow. Do you know what I mean? I think
yeah,
the
definitely.
rest will sort of take care of itself. We're going to play your first track now, which is one of my
Okay.
one of my joint favourites with you as well.
Yeah.
So a big kind of hip hop classic. Dr. Dre's on it as well. Blackstreet. Yeah. Do you want to tell us
Yeah.
why this one was one you picked?
I didn't have a lot of music influence growing up. I don't have like my mum or my dad really introduced me to this, apart from like Madonna and Prince. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s in Leicester, and the other kids were just listening to a lot of R&B. And this is just one of those songs that's almost become timeless, and it's been redone by many many bands as well, and it's just a favourite. I'll just sing really loudly along to it.
I actually played it on my radio show on Monday, funny enough.
Okay.
So like last Monday. So it was good that you picked it. It's one of my favourites as well. It's no diggity.
Yeah, you know what? I like the players. no diggity, no doubt. Play on, play it. Play on, play it. Yo, Dre, drop the verse.
It's going down, fade to Black Street. The homies got at me, collab creations. Bump like agony, no doubt. I put it down, never slouch. As long as my credit can vouch, a dog couldn't catch me. Say out. Tell me who could stop with Dre making moves, attracting honeys like a magnet, giving them orgasms with my mellow accent. Still moving this flavor with the homies Black Street and Teddy, the original rough shakers.
Shorty get down, good lord. Baby got 'em open all over town. Strictly bitch, you don't play around. Cover much grounds, got game by the pound. Getting paid is a forte, each and every day. True play away, I can't get her out of my mind.
Wow.
I think about the girl all the time.
Wow, wow.
East side to the west side, pushing fat rides, it's no surprise. She got tricks in the stash, stacking up the cash, fast when it comes to the gas. By no means average, it's on when she's got to have it. Baby, you're a perfect 10, I wanna get in, can I get down so I can win? I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up.
Bag it up.
I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up.
Bag it up, girl.
I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up.
Bag it up.
I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up.
She's got class and style, street knowledge by the pound. Baby never act wild, very low key on the profile. Catching feelings is a no. Let me tell you how it goes. Herbs the word, spins the verb. Lovers hit curves, so freak what you heard. Rolling with the fatness, you don't even know what the half is. You got to pay to play, just for shorty bang bang to look your way. I like the way you work it, trump tight all day, every day. You're blowing my mind, maybe in time, baby I can get you in my ride.
I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up.
Bag it up.
I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up.
Oh,
I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up.
bag it up, babe.
I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, that girl looks good. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, play on, play on, play on. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, you're my kind of girl. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo.
Cause that's my peeps and we rose deep, flying first class from New York City to Black Street. What you know about me? Now don't thing. Cartier wooded frame sported by my shorty. As for me, icy gleaming pinky diamond ring. We bees the baddest click up on this scene. Ain't you getting bored with these fake broads? High shows improves, no doubt. I've been thinking so. Please excuse if I come across rude, that's just me. And that's how a player's got to be. Stay kicking game with a capital G. Ask the peoples on my block, I'm as real as can be. Word is born, faking moves never been my thing. So Teddy, pass the word to your nigga Chauncey. I'll be sending a call, let's say around 3:30. Queen Pen and Black Street.
I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up. I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up. I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up. I like the way you work it, no diggity, I got to bag it up. Yeah, come on. Becky in full effect, Lisa in full effect, Pinky in full effect, Tamika in full effect, Lays in full effect, ain't nothing going on but the rent, yeah. Play on, play it, play on, play it, play on, play on, play on, play on, cause I like it, no diggity, no doubt, yeah. Black Street Productions, we out, ride, we out, we out.
Okay, so now for this sort of second part, I wanted to talk about the other things you do as well, because I think I wasn't aware, and I don't think a lot of people in performing arts that know you were aware of the other stuff you do as well with your, correct me if I used the wrong term here, fire juggling and all that kind of stuff. That's completely the wrong term, isn't it? I got that completely wrong.
I'm not a juggler.
And the hula hoop performances and stuff like that. I didn't know that until I actually saw you doing it when we did the gig in Derby,
Yeah, burlesque is my primary skill, but fairly early on in the industry, I sort of realised that if you only have one skill, you're only going to get one job.
Yeah.
So I started learning other skills. So I do I play with fire, eat fire. I can spin it a bit. I'm not like an absolutely amazing fire performer, because there are people out there that specialize in that and that's their primary skill, but I can do some nice little tricks and I'm always well polished. And with the hula hoop, I was taking classes for a little while, and it just I just got addicted. So I have a hula hoop act, I have fire, I do stilts as well, but burlesque is the primary skill.
Do you find that you get bookings for the other things you just mentioned, stilt walking and hula hoop? Do you get bookings just for those, or is it always an add-on? Oh, I booked you to do some burlesque, but could you do a little bit of this as well?
Sometimes I do, but I am with burlesque, people look because it's an adult performance, it's not for children. I do get booked for the occasional thing, so I could do a festival or a fete or something with stilts, fire and hula hoop, and it's all super family friendly. But I find it's a tipping point in terms of getting a booking is I can do this other stuff as well, so I'm multi-skilled. So you're paying this fee, oh, that sounds like a bit much, but I can also add another skill into the mix as well. I mean, you play multiple instruments, don't you? So...
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's for an example I was just thinking of is when I'm doing recordings for people. It's I can lay the trombone parts down as well. I'm not a trombone player like Spencer is in the Bastards, but I'm nowhere near that. But I can, if I'm recording parts, I can layer the trombone up as well. So people are paying one session fee and getting a couple of brass instruments, or if they book the Bastards for an event and it sounds a bit much, like you say, I've had that a few times. But if it's a corporate do that, for example, I can say, well, I'm actually a swing singer as well. So if you wanted something for your drinks reception as people are coming in, then it is handy, I think, to have strings to your bow. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. I was on their podcast and we were talking about the kind of days of the all-round entertainer. And I think sadly people don't really aspire to do that anymore. You look at your Bruce Forsyths and your Sammy Davis Juniors, who could do a bit of everything, but they did them all really, really well.
Because in my head it was a new thing, but you've just said all of that, because I feel like performers these days, a lot of them are multi-skilled, but when I started that wasn't the case, and I felt like I was ahead of the game trying to get a couple of more skills under my belt.
Probably served you well, though.
Yeah, the old school stuff. They sing, dance, host, play music. They could do everything, couldn't they?
And they could all do it to a really high standard as well.
Yeah.
And you just don't really see that anymore, I don't think.
I don't know if it's budget based, because if you think of the old days in terms of wages, all of the in terms of normal people, the man would work and the woman would be at home. So there's a nice fat salary there for one person that's not split between two people.
True.
So I don't know if that influenced it, but that said, the music and dance industry, there will be people making the big bucks and lots of people just turning up for a day's wage to perform, so who knows.
That's it. That's one of my kind of key missions really in doing this podcast, is that I don't think people, the general public, and why would they, I don't think they realise that you've got your, especially with musicians, I speak mainly from musicians' point of view, but I'm sure it's true in other art forms, is you've got your people at the very, very top, then you've got your people who are scraping by, but then in between there's a massive swathe of people that make an ordinary living, what you'd probably
Yeah,
be
yeah.
happy with in an office job. But we're actually even happier because we don't have to sit behind a desk all day.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? There's just a whole. It's like with touring, you know, in the current COVID situation and all that. There's all this talk online about a West End theatre, you know, is struggling, or
Yeah.
you know, one of the big names has had to cancel their tour.
Cirque du Soleil
you know.
went into administration, and I was quite shocked by that because
I
I'm like,
was.
okay, I think that's the biggest circus in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I was shocked by that as well. And you know, that's really, really sad. And a big employer as well. They are. They give jobs to a lot of people, don't they?
Yeah, we'll see if they come back, but they might have been locked into contracts because my circus contract, when I went to Germany, was basically I get paid no matter what. And if they've got 1,000 people on a team that they're having to pay, there's all the little technical things to do with business.
Yeah, that's gonna send any company struggling, isn't it? If they've got all those contracts to fulfill. With the circus thing, just quickly, because I'm quite pleased that was a circus contract, because I've wanted to talk to a circus performer on here since I started. It's been one of my sort of main aims. I'm just really intrigued with the whole circus life and how your part of the performance slots into the kind of whole program. And so, what did that show look like that you did in Germany?
Okay, I wouldn't claim to be an out-and-out circus performer, because there are people out there who have actually gone to school for several years, getting up at 6 a.m. to do God knows how many exercises for 12 hours a day. So I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
But I am self-trained. But in terms of a cabaret, it all just fits together perfectly, really. I mean, you can add in musicians, you can add in really quirky acts. It just breaks it up. I was doing the burlesque shows for a while, and it gets a bit samey. I really like multi-skilled people just wowing the audience.
Yeah. Was there that kind of ringmaster to bring it all together and sort of make a show of it? Was it that traditional a circus? Is what I'm thinking.
Are you talking about the show in Germany?
Yeah, in Germany, yeah.
We had two hosts who were a comedy duo and also did a bit of clowning.
Oh, okay.
So they had comedians hosting that particular show.
Funny story about quickly. Funny story about a clown. I was busking in Trafalgar Square for the first time, and I was a bit kind of nervous. I didn't really know the form, you know, how to sort of behave and where was okay to busk and all that. I had a rough guide online, but it was a bit kind of vague. So I'm waiting for this spot underneath the museum at the top of Trafalgar Square, and it's an absolute prime location. All the tourists go there, and there was a guy doing he was on a unicycle juggling, and it's actually said behind it busking pitch 1 or whatever. So I thought, okay, this will be all right. And then there was a little sign that said, you might experience a 30 to 40 minute wait to get on this pitch. No, you can't do any more than 45 minutes here. But seeing the crowds and the reaction he was getting, and then the money he got at the end of this slot, I thought it's worth waiting 40 minutes and doing 45-minute set. So I've got my busking speaker, I've got my trumpet, my mic. And then there was one bloke in front of me, and I thought, I'll try and network in the busking community. So I started talking to him. How you doing? Yeah, I'm Gareth, I'm a singer and stuff. And he was a bit kind of off with me. Just I said, can't remember what his name was now, but I said, hi, I'm Gareth, I'm a singer. How you doing? And he just said his name, like Joe, like that, or whatever his name was. I thought, okay, a bit off. And then it came to the sort of end of this guy's performance, and the guy was waiting, turned to me and said, "Oh, you a singer? A musician?" I said, "Yeah." He said, no, mate. And bear in mind, I waited 40 minutes. He goes, no, you want to go down there. This is only for circus performers. You want to go down to that pitch down there. And I'm thinking, right, we've been sat here for half an hour. I've been trying to make conversation with you painfully, and you could have said that, And then and he was just really, really rude and miserable. And then I said, "Oh, all right, mate, no worries, I'll head down there." I said, what do you do, by the way? And he went, "Oh, I'm a clown." I thought, fucking miserable clown. And then as soon as he got into the performance, he was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, he really was.
It was exactly the same at this show, actually. The clown was incredibly grumpy and bad-tempered backstage and sort of mumbling to himself quite a lot. And yeah, I mean, I hear that comedians have quite a high rate of depression as well, but
Yeah.
We all know when you've got something hard going on and then you've got to go on stage, and I just like snap into action and do whatever you need to do on stage, and no one would be any the wiser. But yeah, maybe that's a clown thing.
Maybe it is. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it really struck me, that did. I'll never forget that one. And but like you say, I've been in that situation where you're sat in a dressing room, and I remember sat there. And one of the other performers who was there that night, another singer, she said to me, she didn't know me. She said, your eyes look really sad. And then, and I was sad at the time. And and then whoever was running the event, I didn't even have a chance to answer. Whoever was running the event said, okay, you're up, Gareth. And I literally went from sad eyes to, good evening, everybody. How you doing? And all that. And you do have to really snap out of it almost,
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Especially on the way to the gig when you're like, oh my God, I just want to wallow in self-pity. And you know that you've got to be all super smiley and happy.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can't, I think it's very obvious if a performer is going through the motions. You can't just go through the motions. You have to actually turn it on and deliver,
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned earlier was you really like seeing kind of powerful and dominant women in your industry. That's one thing that kind of keeps driving you forward, which I think is it's a good point to kind of bring in the next song, because with Janelle Monáe, you've got a very kind of strong, powerful woman. So tell us about this one.
I just discovered her on YouTube, Janelle Monáe, and I'm not sure why she hasn't made it in England, because her videos are great. They're really, really fun and new ideas. There's lots of things going on. But she's basically a black female bisexual woman singing about vaginas in this song. you don't pick it up if you don't listen too closely. But the video is hilarious. The clothes, the costumes that they've got are just lady bits, and they're dancing in the desert. So it's not my favorite song of hers, but I just wanted to stick in a little bit of feminist music while I'm here.
No, why not? Well, let's play it then. Here we go.
Pink like the inside of your baby, pink behind all of the doors. Crazy pink like the tongue that goes down. Maybe pink like the paradise found. Pink when you're blushing inside. Baby, pink is the truth you can't hide. Maybe pink like the folds of your brain. Crazy pink as we all go insane. So here we are in the car, leaving traces of us down the boulevard. I wanna fall through the stars. Getting lost in the dark is my favorite part. Let's count the ways we could make this last forever. Sunny, money, keep it funky, sexual, top it, let it down. Around your maybe pink like the skin that's under. Baby pink, hair is deepest inside. Crazy pink beyond forest and ice. Pink like the secrets you hide. Maybe pink like the lid of your eye. Baby pink is where all of it starts. Crazy pink like the holes of your heart. So here we are in the car, leaving traces of us down the boulevard. I wanna fall through the stars.
Janelle Monáe there, and I think she is an example of somebody who really is comfortable in her own skin, and kind of knows who she is, and is really kind of self-confident. And I think to do what you do in particular, to do any kind of performance, but to do what you do in particular, I think you have to really have that mindset, don't you?
Yeah, you definitely have to know what you're doing on stage. I wouldn't say that I've always been confident in all areas of my life.
I remember
but performance-wise and creatively.
Well, when you said earlier about being an introvert, you know, I've never really thought about that with yourself. But actually, yeah, you're quite sort. I remember when we did. Do you remember we did that weird one in Colville? That kind of gym. It was a boxing gym.
Yeah.
And I remember you had very, very much that kind of thing of like before you perform and stuff, before you kind of, you know, get the clothes on and stuff, and you're in that mode. It was very much like, look, I'm just gonna have my own space. And you seem somebody who's quite sort of happy with their own company.
I mean, I am. I kind of had to be because I was on my own a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, going to an event and just as me, as Amber, and just being in a crowd of people that I don't know, I'm not going to be making conversation with anyone. I find it absolutely terrifying. If I've just been on stage and I'm all dressed up, people will probably come up to me, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's helpful to me.
Yeah.
But unless like I can really think of something to talk about, or we've definitely got a common background, I wouldn't know where to go with people.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing about Burlesque though that I like is the whole mystique of it though, in that you don't really. I think it's much better, you know, when if a Burlesque performer's just finished and then they vanish and that's all you see of them that night. I think that has so much more kind of impact. You know, and I think the same thing with bands to a lesser extent is that, you know, once you've done your show, that's it. You know, you're not in the bar with the punters afterwards. Like, you know, there's a boundary, but when you're on stage, it's all of us together. Let's have a great time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I think you need to keep performing once you're on. The thing is, if you go for a drink in the bar, you kind of have to keep in character and keep performing and feel obliged to.
Yeah, you do, actually. You do. The worst one for me is when I do some stuff with a Frank Sinatra tribute, really good Frank Sinatra tribute, and we do the Michael Bublé meets Sinatra thing, so the two singers. And he's very much gets into the mode of Frank, and he does it brilliantly. Like one of the best tributes I've seen, with the accent, and he wears a toupee. And he's and then vocally he's spot on for Frank as well, but then and people call him Frank throughout the night. And he's got into that. He's done it for a long time, and he's got into that. I remember when I first started gigging with him, and then people are then calling me Michael in between sets. Thinking, what are you on about? I'm not Mike, I'm Gareth. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, it's quite, and that's not me not wanting to be in performance mode, but for me, I'm performing as Gareth. I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to be Michael Bublé. Do you know what I mean? I might be heavily influenced by him. I might sound like him, but I'm not trying to be him. That's the beauty of, I guess, your art form, is that you can be very individual.
Yeah, I definitely needed that stage name as well to get out there initially. I couldn't have just been me and not like now just go and be some kind of dynamite on stage. Like
Yeah,
I needed that character, but of course as a performer it's all within you. I just have a reason to do it when I'm performing. But it's so in your face that I wouldn't behave like that in it every day because it's probably a bit inappropriate.
yeah,
Not like taking clothes off, but just being a complete diva and waltzing around with
yeah.
tons of hair and makeup and
Yeah, but it's that kind of alter ego, isn't it? Having that alter
yeah.
ego, I think, is important. And you can like have a, I don't know about you, but I have a definite point where I say, right, I'm turning that on now, and I'm turning the normal kind of laid back, bit quiet. You know, in your case, like you said, slightly introverted. I'm turning that off for an hour now, and I'm doing this. Do you know what I mean? You can't. There isn't a
Definitely.
middle ground. You're either doing one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether I'm ruining the illusion in this podcast. When I used to do little radio bits and stuff years ago, I would try and stay in character, maybe mimicking pop stars on radio or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And try and keep up the illusion. But yeah, oh God, honestly, I'm so desperate to get back on stage.
Well, I know. Well, I was going to kind of sort of finish things off with that. Really, is that because for singers and musicians, it's wearing a bit thin now. But the live stream thing has been at least an outlet. You know, for me, it was I could sing every week still, so it was.
Okay.
You know, it kind of kept the vocal chops in shape and all that kind of stuff. And it was okay. I'd get a bit of kind of reaction, you know, in comments and stuff, and it kind of did fill a bit of a void. I guess you've not really had that, have you? Because you can't really do what you do as a live stream.
There have been some live burlesque shows, but I've watched it and some of them, and I'm just too much of a perfectionist. If I'm going to film something, I want multiple camera angles. I want lighting and smoke and backdrop. I don't just want to be a woman in my living room awkwardly taking my clothes off to no one. I just it's not enough. I need
there are other places.
Show.
There are other places people can go for that, aren't there? Do you know what I mean? You know, it's
too close to different industries for me personally. But I'm a perfectionist, and like I'm sure the industry will go in that direction a little bit in terms of being able to film stuff and stream online. But I'm kind of waiting for the quality to get better, if it does that during our career time or whether it'll take longer than us.
Yeah, I think it's there's definitely a big difference in quality between different musicians as well, and I think it's something that if you're going to do it, you need to do it properly, really, and try and kind of stand out, you know.
Yeah. So I have filmed some short bits and bobs, and there's stuff on my Instagram, but yeah, we're just talking like 30-second clips.
Yeah, but that can be enough sometimes, you know, just to kind of sort of stay relevant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And stay in people's minds, and also, you know, those people who put shows together, promoters and venues and stuff, they will be thinking about, okay, when we come back from this, what we're going to be doing. And if they just see you pop up on social media here and there, that's going to still feed their mind that, oh yeah, that could be good for an event I'm planning or whatever. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but it can also be overdone as well. I think I got to the point where I thought, okay, people are a bit sick of me every Saturday now doing this. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, and also I had some releases coming up as well, some single, you know, a couple of singles and an album.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I'm drilling this live stream thing home every Saturday and then I release music, it's not going to have any impact really. People can go, oh yeah, well I've seen him every week. You know what I mean? So
the balance, isn't it?
fine balance, yeah, fine balance. Yeah. And how do you think? Are you worried in terms of your? In terms of bookings and your industry and stuff, you know, following COVID, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's just so hard to tell right now. I mean, when it first happened, I had bookings moved to October, and then and now I'm not sure. I've got some things moved to next year. I'm just concentrating on the costumes right now and trying not to let myself get too out of shape, because if I get a booking, I want to go and do a really good job. Yeah, but I mean, I think the industry will change. It might take time, like I said, like live streaming shows and stuff like that, because I think it'd be really great to be able to see a show that's on the other side of the world for a few pounds if you can stream it, while, you know, people that actually go to the event would be paying between 10 and 50 quid, whatever a ticket price is. But there's a lot of potential for a lot of different things, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, at the moment I'm just missing the stage, really.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it's kind of made me realise what gigs I want to do and which ones I don't. You know, and I think we've all got those. You know, we've all got those that we do because we need to make a living, and we've all got those that we do because we're passionate and you know, about it. And it's definitely made me realise those. It's made me realise that there are other avenues that that can be based around music, but not necessarily on stage performing. So, you know, recording, doing podcasts, for example. And I guess for you already had that in place with the costume side, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it dropped dramatically. People stopped spending money for a little while, and it did get scary at points, but it is still some kind of an income. And I mean, I've just felt very cheesy, but felt very blessed for a long time to not have to work in a job for somebody else, or if I do work for other people, it's short contracts, and we learn from each other. So I don't want to get a normal job. I don't think I will need to. Yeah,
it's it definitely. I've seen a few musicians go down that road of getting you know, in quotes, a normal job after a while of doing it. And I mean, I always said when I started with the musician thing is that I'll do it for a few years. It'll be a great experience, but it probably won't be that sustainable. And at some point, I'm going to have to say, okay, get a normal job, you know. And that was great while it lasted. But it's just gone on and on and on. You know.
Yeah, it depends what you do and how you think and how hard you work and if you're on the right page, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
I didn't intend to be a full-time sort of performer and costume designer. It happened.
Yeah, and it just, you know, there was, if you were ever thinking, oh, I might need to get a normal job, and I guess somebody once said to me, if a gig leads to a gig, you'll always be working.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely an element of that, you know, again, all the social media stuff and all that's great, but it comes down to kind of word of mouth, really. If you work hard enough to get your name out there, you do get out what you put in at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think with all of the virus stuff, like you just said about being a bit more choosy about gigs, realising the extent that I would rush around and run myself absolutely ragged.
Yeah.
And I'm still okay now. I'm kind of pretty much supporting myself now, and I don't need to be completely stressed out running from one thing to another and booking my diary up to the point where I'm just working and sleeping. So I think, everyone, no matter what job you're in, will be needing to have a little rethink as to whether what they want to go back to and what their priorities are.
Definitely a bit of a reset and a bit of a rebalancing of, you know, I've enjoyed, like, for example, bike rides out in, you know, in the different parks in Leicester, like fallen back in love with Abbey Park, which I loved as a kid. And stuff like that. And I just never, that would not even cross my mind to just go on a bike ride before. You know what I mean? Because I was just working all the time.
Yeah, definitely. But like, I felt like when I started in the industry and I was transitioning from being a graphic designer to doing my own thing, like being busy and, oh my God, I've got these emails and these quotes and these suppliers and these gigs to go to. And I felt important and in demand and like I was succeeding, and that success has sort of been defined as how busy you are.
Yeah, good point.
And I've tried to flip that round. I'm trying slowly to get to a point where I have a solid, strong income and plenty of free time. I guess we'll try and get to that point. I was getting really close before COVID. I was so close.
I know. Financial freedom, really, isn't it? And flexibility. Yeah. And I mean, a few of the musicians have said to me, you know, it's a killer because we were finally at the stage where we were bringing in, you know, fairly decent money and doing mainly gigs that we want to do. There was obviously the odd one that we, you know, was a bit But at the end of the day, it's still, even on the ones where I'm not that keen to do them, I still think, okay, 9 to 5, no, you don't do that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and yeah, it's a shame. I'm sure we will get back to it though.
Yeah. I mean, I had Norway and Switzerland booked in for this summer for gigs, and honestly, this year, and I had some really good festivals, and I was being a bit more picky about my gigs, and we'll see what happens.
Going in the right direction.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, Talulah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really enjoyed that. It's good to talk to different performers as well. It's a nice challenge for me, not just interviewing musicians. So thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for having me.
No worries. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 5 of season 2 of On the Road With. We're nearly at the end of season 2 now. It's absolutely flown by, and we've had some fantastic guests, including Talulah herself today. I'd really like to thank her for her time, and it was a real pleasure to have a chat about a wide range of topics. If you like what you're hearing, please do follow, subscribe and like us wherever you get your podcast fix. And you can also keep in touch with us on social media. So it's Gareth John Music on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And I'll be posting updates about the show, including new episodes and bonus content, etc. on those platforms. If you've got any guest suggestions or any feedback on the episodes at all, you can email me directly as well. It's garethrdjohn@gmail.com. If you'd also like to leave us a review at Apple Podcasts, that really does help spread the word of the podcast far and wide. That'd be absolutely fantastic. I'm now going to play the show out with one of Talulah's picks. It's the track that she did her second ever burlesque performance to, and it's Down in Mexico by the Coasters. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Mexico. Crazy. Come with me, baby.